Hey, what's happening? Welcome back to my channel. My name is D, and today I want to talk about what may be the final update from the World of Guardian saga. But before we get into all of that, I want to give a quick shout out to my Plus Ultra Don't Fretters, my top tier supporters on Patreon, JJ Valdez and Peggy Lou Who. Thank you both so much for your support. You are helping to ensure I'm able to keep creating content and put it out as frequently as possible. If you also want to help keep the channel going, get some bonus content, and join my private Discord server where you can interact with a lovely community of like dozens of really funny, nerdy, creative people, make sure you consider subscribing to my Patreon at patreon.com/thefretter. If you want to join the Patreon for free, you get access to my monthly newsletter where I talk about what I'm reading, what I'm watching, what I'm working on. And if you want to help keep the channel going but you don't want a monthly subscription, you could also buy me a coffee at ko-fi.com/thefretter. All the money from that goes towards helping me get a new camera and some gear so that I can keep making content in 2026. And if you don't want to do any of that, no worries, but please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. So I'm late to this topic, and because I only post like once every other week, I'm really late to this one. For all I know, this could be the last video on the Age of Scorpius. And I don't just mean from me, I mean like on the internet in general. So I'm assuming if you clicked on this video, you've been keeping up with the drama, and this is like the last piece of content in the pizza box. Yeah, it's skinny little, nobody gives a fuck about this piece, but like someone's got to eat it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, I did do a video about this author, I guess a couple months ago now, and there's a bunch of other videos. So many videos about this topic by now, I would almost consider it a small genre unto itself. But I want to try to give like a brief breakdown / recap for you. The Age of Scorpius is a young adult, I think, romantasy fantasy novel. Came out at the end of June 2025 and was written by an author formerly known as Audra Winter. He now goes by Milo and uses he, him pronouns. Real quick aside, I'm not going to tolerate any transphobia in the comment section. In my previous videos about this author, people were really over the top with their misogyny and condescension and shit like that. Just because you don't like somebody or they did something wrong doesn't mean you get to be oppressive. Not that this aside is really going to do much, because it seems like now that I'm not really reviewing books as much, I'm just doing like commentary and talking about creativity and stuff like that. People don't really watch my videos anymore. They just kind of figure out what my premise is and submit their own essays on what I'm talking about in the comment section. I don't know who they think is going to be reading those essays, but it's not going to be me. At least when I did exclusively book reviews, people would at least watch enough to respond to things I was saying. In my video talking about the 10,000 hour rule or whatever, people definitely did not watch the video. They were just making points I make in the video. Is it interesting? Am I interesting? I mean, it's annoying. Prior to the release of Age of Scorpius, Milo went viral a couple of times, like talking about being this up-and-coming young writer, working on this book for like 10 years since he was like 12 or something. And he claimed to have 10 years of writing experience, and most of the time when people say they have like X number of years writing experience, they mean like since they were published until the present type of deal. So like, I don't even know if I would say that, but I've self-published a couple chapbooks. I don't even know if I count, because I self-published a couple of chapbooks like 5 years ago. So I guess I could say I've had 5 years writing experience, kind of. But I wouldn't count the time I spent writing before then. Even then, I don't really feel confident calling myself an author. Would love to be one day, but I don't think I'm there yet. So anyways, this would get called into question, and Milo would get pretty defensive, which is a thing Milo's kind of known for now. And he would double or even triple down on this claim to 10 years writing experience and mastery of writing, and used Malcolm Gladwell's theory of 10,000 hours to mastery as like the math that indicates that Milo is a master at writing.
I also very much encourage you to look up Malcolm Gladwell's The Outliers. It is a phenomenal book. Malcolm Gladwell has a theory that basically he came up with over numerous years that says it takes 10,000 hours to reach a basic level of mastery. He references people such as Bill Gates and famous chess players, but it is the whole theory behind talent and skill is built. It is not given. You have to work and dedicate to your craft. And God knows I have done that. I have reached my 10,000 hours because ever since I was 12 years old, I have spent 3 hours or more every single day without failure writing at night before I go to sleep. I cannot go to sleep unless I write. The series and the book, this whole time, the whole 10 years in Gardian. Like, I have been developing Gardian for over 3 hours every single day for 10 years of my life. Also, just to kind of nail your point wrong over and over again here, because you seem to just be coming on just to put me down. But I have a lot of experience in the publishing industry.
We're also going to talk about Malcolm Gladwell's theory of 10,000 hours to mastery. He states that writing is a developed skill. It is not a natural born talent. And in order to achieve mastery, he says that one must spend 10,000 hours. I have achieved mastery according to Malcolm Gladwell's theory.
I personally don't buy into that theory, but even if I did, I don't think that Milo's really grasped what was said in Outliers, or at the very least interpreted it very differently than I did, because even in that 10,000 hours theory, you still have to like practice and try to get better. But Milo seems to believe that just by writing the same story over and over and over and over again, he's developing writing skills. And spoiler alert, the Age of Scorpius doesn't read like he had. And this part always kind of confuses me just because I think I just operate a little bit different, you know, like when it comes to developing a skill or whatever, I don't take feedback from just anybody. But if I'm like paying a teacher or something, or I'm taking a writing class or whatever, I will take the feedback from my instructor and my peers. And even if I don't implement the feedback, I take it into consideration. And just by the way this young author conducted himself in public, I really don't think he did that. Anyways, Milo also claimed to be working with the editor from the Hunger Games. And that's technically true, but they were a contract editor who worked on the marketing side of the Hunger Games. And even if that was true, I don't know if that would actually legitimize your project. Like, I was talking about somebody about this, kind of talking about stand-up comedy, because like for those of you who may not know who I am and you're just watching any Age of Scorpius content you can get your hands on, I do stand-up comedy. I was talking to another comedian. I was saying, like, you know, sometimes I don't really think that the credits that people say before they bring you up really matter, because if you're not funny, you're not funny. Like, any accomplishment I have doesn't really matter, because like very well-established comedians still bomb from time to time, you know, or like certain jokes just don't land. And so like a credit, like, oh, I worked with the editor of the Age of like I worked with the editor. I worked with the editor of the Hunger Games might sound kind of cool, but at the same time, it's like, okay, but like, is the book good? Is the story good, or whatever? I don't know. Like, that's just my opinion. Maybe that works on some other people. So the Age of Scorpius comes out and pretty quickly starts getting some pretty negative reviews. And while the reviews are pretty negative, the content of the reviews is still mostly kind, you know what I mean? Like, I didn't do the math. I don't know the ratio or whatever of like nice to not nice or whatever. But initially, a lot of the reviews, while negative, are just like, oh, I was really rooting for this author. I really think if some of these things were changed, or maybe if they weren't in such a rush, like, you know, it'd be a better book, that kind of thing. But Milo seems to really struggle with critique, no matter how mild it may be. I don't really remember, or I don't know if I ever fully understood the chronological order of this like pattern of behavior, but at one point Milo's putting out like text posts or videos with text on them talking about narrative voice and being like, y'all don't really get me because I'm trying to write a neurodivergent character. You know what I'm saying? Like, my narrative voice is different than what you might be expecting because my main character is neurodivergent. I do think that neurodivergent characters should be represented in literature. The book has to be readable, though. You know what I mean? Like, you can't write any character, whether they're neurotypical or neurodivergent, exactly the way normal everyday people speak, because a book is inherently more structured than life itself. And so dialogue is going to be inherently more structured than regular conversations. Like even in a memoir, things get cleaned up and trimmed up so that it's easier to follow. Because if all literature and media was as messy as life, it wouldn't be coherent, I don't think. Even if that was what Milo was initially going for, I still don't think the book is readable. I didn't read the whole book, but I did read some excerpts, and yeah, it's just on a line level. This book just doesn't work. It truly doesn't read like it's edited. Like, I teach creative writing classes with high school students and middle school students, and some of their stuff, some of their first drafts are like grammatically and technically more efficient than what I read in The Age of Scorpius. And I'm not trying to be like, oh, my students are better than all y'all hoes or whatever. I'm just saying that like it read like a really rough first draft. So yeah, Milo tries a bunch of different ways to save face, spin the narrative. That's something that the narrative spins and twists and turns a lot in this story. And I'm a little confused. First, as I mentioned before, like Milo puts out this borderline passive-aggressive post and is like, nah, all you hoes are wrong. And then there was an apology video. And I don't mean a video in which Milo apologizes for the poor quality of the book. I mean an apology video in that it fits within the aesthetic and the genre of apology videos, but no apology is made. It's in this video. It was the first time where I think Milo sort of tries to put like the successor fit. Like, it's never outright stated, but Milo kind of alludes to some pretty serious like mental health troubles as a result of the poor reception of The Age of Scorpius. And it's never outright stated, but it sounds like his like mental well-being and physical safety may be on the line because people aren't frothing at the mouth for this book, and it's not immediately going to become like this multimedia movie theme park video game studio, and kind of tries to put that on the audience instead of it being like, oh, y'all didn't like my work and I didn't implement the edits that I should have properly, and the book wasn't readable on a line level, and that's my bad, so I'm going to reimburse everybody and send out like an ebook of the right edits or something. It was more like, y'all have to like my stuff. It just kind of came off like, again, this was never outright stated, but it just felt like, guys, you have to like my work or the kid gets it, and the kid is me. Milo kind of implies that all of this started from one TikTok, and sorry, I'm not trying to laugh. It's just like the TikTok itself is very mild from another indie author who is being very gracious, never names Age of Scorpius, but does like kind of like mention some numbers. But is just talking about like, hey, like there are some mistakes that were made here that I think other indie authors should avoid. Milo's like, well, how could anyone say this about another author or whatever? And nothing bad is said. It's more like, hey, like I just got this book. I don't think it was edited as poor quality. We should all do better. And this is like an aside. I don't want to put words in this dude's mouth because he's been given a hard enough time as is, just because Milo tried to blame him for the failure of Age of Scorpius. But personally, I think that indie authors do need to, most indie authors know this. Like, all the ones I talk to know this. Indie authors know this. I know that there's a lot of like indie authors and aspiring indie authors who watch my channel. And so like, I know that you know this by and large, but like when you're putting out your work as a product, whether you have aspirations of being a career author or you're just sharing your work to share it, there does need to be a certain level of professionalism and quality that goes out if you're going to take money for your work. So when we're talking about like books, developmental editing, line editing, making sure that it's been like gone through certain numbers of revision and certain proper channels to make sure that the book is the best that it can be, because people are spending their hard-earned dollars on your work. If we're talking about music, make sure that it's mixed and mastered. Movies, edited, color graded, other words that I definitely know. But I do think that it's kind of wild to say that this TikToker who doesn't have that many followers has the power and the clout to totally turn the internet against you. And I don't even think, like, I've seen people talk about like they're doing the same thing that I do with like really inflammatory titles for YouTube videos, and they're like, Book Talk's most hated author or whatever. And I'm like, maybe for like a minute, but honestly, like, Book Talk's memory is kind of short, and hate feels so strong for how most of the conversation about this author has been, in my opinion. But to say that this TikToker, who was the person that I was talking about or referencing in my last video, to say that this person has the social power, the influence to totally change the public perception of a book is wild. And it's these kind of like wild swings or really like far reaches that Milo makes that just kind of like concern me a little bit, because it seems like Milo will do anything but just acknowledge that he put out a bad book. Like, instead of maybe taking a second, like, maybe the book isn't good, maybe I should go back and read it for myself, or maybe I should rethink my revision process, because Milo has said that his revision process before another video we're going to talk about in a second was to just restart the manuscript over again. That's not editing. That's not implementing edits. That's just making a new first draft. 2, that feels like a lot more work. Maybe I implement edits wrong, but like when I've gotten edits for things, I just like go to where they say to change things and work around it. You know what I mean? Like, I'll like take pieces out and add new pieces or rewrite scenes or whatever. Maybe I'm doing it wrong, but like maybe it's somewhere in the middle, you know? I don't know. What's your editing process like? And then I think after the apology video, we get a different sort of aesthetic from Milo, where it's like a very like tech bro, entrepreneur type aesthetic and lighting and stuff like that. Milo talks about a team and a new 8-step revision process that is like 5 steps too many and involves the whole World of Gardian studio team for some reason. Like, I don't know why you need musicians and like, what was it, 8 visual artists or whatever for rewriting a book. But, you know, at the same time, I don't know, like, I have a team for my production company, and I don't need most of them, but I like having them around, so maybe I'm not one to judge, you know what I mean? And then we get some Instagram posts or some text posts from members of the team, specifically the new in-house editor or whatever they call them, who they like low-key, I couldn't tell if it was just Milo pretending to be the editor to like really give the perception of like, it's a big team, it's a real studio, we're real, we do stuff, it's common, the theme park's common, fuck off. But like low-key, the narrative starts to be that it's the previous editor's fault. And I'm just like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, what editor was my first immediate reaction. But then I think in one of Meredith Novico's last videos on this subject, I think that she had talked to the 2 editors that Milo had claimed to have worked with, and it's like, no, like, we worked with him, and he was chill, nice, but I don't think that those edits were implemented, which makes sense, because I think like Milo may have understood like he can't get defensive with these editors that he's hired or whatever, but also because he seems to struggle with getting critique so much, may have just completely disregarded the edits. Or because of the revision process, like was thinking about those edits, but just rewrote the whole manuscript and a whole new batch of problems came up or something. I don't know. And like at this point, it really doesn't matter what happened, but I find it so fascinating. This makes me not want to independently publish my books. And it makes me not want to pursue publishing. But yeah, this constant shifting of blame seems to be a pattern for Milo. It's a recurring theme in every one of Milo's reinterpretations of the narrative of what's happened with the Age of Scorpius. Shortcomings as a writer, author, entrepreneur, whatever, are everyone else's faults but Milo's. It's the random indie author TikToker, it's the previous editors, it's the readers, it's everyone but Milo. It seems like this dude is unwilling or unable to look at like his own mistakes and even look at his own writing. That's the thing that's come up a couple of times in other videos where apparently there's a TikTok where Milo says like, I hate reading my own writing, which again made me wonder if that's why the revision process, because you know, it's always forward, never backwards. You don't actually have to look at what you've done before. You just do it again and trust yourself to remember what you're supposed to remember, which, look, self-trust is a necessary skill. You need that. You shouldn't trust yourself that much. It seems to me that if Milo were to acknowledge that the way that he's treated people, the way he's conducted himself in public, the lack of attention to details that matter, you know, like making sure that your book's like properly edited. He may have to entertain the idea that he's not a writing prodigy or like the young entrepreneur CEO of a multimedia supergiant like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter or something like that. I'm kind of developing a theory about this for myself, and maybe I'll make a video about it at some point, or maybe it'll be in one of my books, but there's a point in, I think, the life cycle of a creative where you have to realize that you're not special. Like that you have to kind of realize that you kind of suck. You know what I mean? Like I think that that's necessary for your growth. In like, trigger warning, there's gonna be some nerd shit, but in like a lot of different shonen anime, like the good ones, there's a point where the main character realizes that he's not the strongest or he's not the best, and there's a whole world of like people better, people stronger, people faster, whatever the thing is. And the character has to go through a training arc in order to become better and in order to, you know, get back up. Now, obviously those end up being, but obviously because the main character is usually the special, that should get speed run, and it's not that, it's not as realistic, you know what I mean? But I do think that every creative goes through this point where it's like, oh, my work's not as good as I thought it was. Yeah, I'm not as hot as I thought I was or something. And like, well, it's not a fun thing to realize, or it's not a fun thing to acknowledge or admit or whatever. It's also, it's gonna, at the end of the day, that's gonna help improve your work. And like, I'm going through that right now as a comedian, and I'm going through that as a content creator, and almost more as a content creator than as a comedian, because like, I don't know what I'm doing most of the time with content. I think part of why Milo refuses to like acknowledge that maybe he's not as good a writer as he thinks, or that maybe he's not owed the success he feels entitled to. Maybe he doesn't get to make a living off of living in this fantasy world. Is this fantasy world, Gardian, means so much to him. This is he's had it since he was 12. It's a paracosm. You know, it's this like super detailed daydream fantasy world that he's gone to in his mind to deal with some like pretty hard stuff. I think I don't remember the details, and even if I did, I don't know if I'd want to get too into it, but like, I believe he and his family are survivors of a natural disaster, and he has some like medical stuff. And some people in my first video were talking about the world of Gardian being like a maladaptive daydream or whatever. And like, yeah, for sure. And also, I think like, while I disagree with the idea of literature's sole purpose being entertainment and escapism, I do think that a little bit of escapism is good. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I guess like for me, it's, I get it, but I just feel like no matter how you try to avoid your problems will always be there unless you like deal with them. Sometimes you can't, obviously, especially when you're a kid, right? You know what I'm saying? It's like, sometimes your circumstances are beyond your control. Like, I'm poor. there isn't a lot that I can do because like bootstrapping's not real. I work like 50 hours a week at a day job. I make a little bit of money off of this and Patreon, and I make like $4 off of doing stand-up comedy. Some people's circumstances are out of their control, and you can't just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and get out of them, especially when you're a kid and you don't have like the knowledge, the resources, the ability to get out of those circumstances. And you know, like a lot of people develop like these habits of just trying to survive or just trying to navigate the world young because it's the best they could come up with. You know what I'm saying? Like for me, I turned to substances a lot when I was young because I didn't want to have to deal with like life. You know what I mean? That's the best that I could come up with. Is the thing that was most available to me at the time where I could really like get out of it. You know what I mean? And that's and I think that would probably be the thing where some people are like, well, you know, like, oh, I'm sure I turn to video games for escapism, but at least it's not drugs. It's like, I don't know, video games are your drugs, in my opinion. I say all this to say, like, yeah, you could call the world of Gardian Milo Winters' maladaptive daydream he's trying to monetize. It's probably the best coping strategy a 12-year-old's going to come up with. You know what I mean? And it's like big bridge to Terabithia vibes. I don't know. And so, like, I wonder if the need for the world of Gardian to be this big, successful media supergiant isn't just a desire for money or success, but also just so that Milo can keep living in that world and not have to spend a lot of time in this world, you know what I mean, in reality. And I get that, right? Because I would love to be able to do things that I love and not have to, you know, exchange most of my waking hours for a little bit of money just to keep a roof over my head and food in the fridge. I also wonder if maybe part of it is wanting to be understood. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of my writing and a lot of my art is me trying to talk about what it feels like to be me, because you know, like I haven't talked about it too much, but I have like a unique lived experience and a unique perspective, and I'm trying to share that perspective. I think everybody wants to be understood. Everyone wants to be known, not like well-known, famous, but I mean like wants to feel like people get them. You know what I mean? I don't know. Like I feel for this dude in some ways. Obviously, I don't agree with like how he's conducted himself or even like what I think his values are or his reasons for wanting to be a writer or whatever. I don't think we agree on much, but I do feel for him. Maybe I'm projecting a lot. That's also entirely possible. But like just some of the underlying feelings and things that are expressed in their like in his like lower moments, I'm just like, oh yeah, I've been there. I get that. I feel you, kid. And yeah, people want to act like Milo Winters has committed the worst atrocities in the world of literature, like Gothicana doesn't exist, like Onyx Storm isn't a thing. And I understand if people feel ripped off or let down because they felt like they're gonna get this like really great book, but when you don't have any example of someone's writing before you like buy it, that's a gamble. That's a risk that you're taking with your money, and it didn't pay off, and that sucks, and I feel for those people, but I don't think they're entitled for a refund. And I really don't think that this was a scam and was done on purpose. Like I've seen the movie Producers. I don't think this is that. And then I think Milo set up a Patreon and put up some revised chapters, like I think like 2, and then kind of just disappeared and things really slowed down. And this is the part where I kind of lost interest, or like I wasn't really keeping up with the story, but like some of my patrons were. But after a while I was like, okay, yeah, like kid's just gone, probably for the best, and moving on, you know? I guess we'll all wait for the next terrible thing. Let me know when an author comes out and just admits that their book is just an AI copy of Harry Potter, but this time Voldemort wins. I don't know. And then some people are starting to speculate that Milo was like fleeing the country and trying to run away with the money. I didn't buy into that. I was like, I don't think it'd be that easy. And even if that is why, you'll just get caught. Whatever, it's fine. I feel for the people who never received a book at all, though. And if those people thought they're being scammed somehow, like, yeah, it sucks. And I do think that like Milo owes the people who ordered something a completed order. Fishy stuff with the TikTok shop, I think, where the World of Guardian team could claim that the order was completed because they sent out a bookmark as a placeholder for the actual book. And so that's kind of that. I would understand if someone was like, that part's pretty scammy. I'd be like, yeah, that's not great, But I think anybody who's like, oh, he put out a bad book on purpose, I don't buy that. Anyways, then like some of my patrons started to talk about like this piece where Milo came out as trans and started using the name Milo, and then some other people kind of started sending me this piece, and for a while I didn't want to read it. I was like, oh, I don't really care at this point. Like, what could I At first I was like, because part of me was like, I don't really care, like I got my own like mental health issues to deal with. I've been struggling a little bit myself. Kind of just hope this dude like takes a break and is just kind of like, yeah, I needed, like, my hope was that whatever this essay was, it was just gonna be like, yo, what's up? I'm a dude, and I'm gonna leave the internet for a while, and I'll come back with a good book. I'm sorry. That's what I was kind of hoping for, So I was like, well, whatever. And it wasn't until I started talking to a friend that I was like, oh, maybe I should like read this or whatever, or watch like someone else's video about this. So I watched someone else's video, and then I also read the piece. The piece is called High Disturbance. I'm not going to read the entire thing, but if you haven't read it for yourself already and would like to, or you want to watch someone else's video where they do read through more of it than I'm going to, I'll put links to that stuff in the description down below. After I published a shitty book and became the most hated author of the year. Okay, so off the jump, I was hopeful because I'm like, okay, yeah, you get it. Like, you've reflected, you kind of understand that the quality wasn't quite there. I don't know about this whole most hated author of the year, because like a lot of the conversation that I had wasn't hatred, There was morbid curiosity. There was maybe like some people being a little like enjoying someone's downfall a little too much. I don't know about hatred, because even like all these long ass meandering comments that I would get in my comment section in the videos about winter before now, there wasn't a lot of like rage so much as like, Miss Rather, this dumb child, this entitled little. I was like, shut up. Like, we get it. You think you're smarter. You think you're a better writer. Like, I get it. I drove toward a wildfire in the Colorado Rockies where smoke hazed the sky and a red sun glared through the atypical September heat. I hadn't bothered to look up the fire's exact location. If my favorite canyon was aflame, I would have found myself blindly amidst a wildfire. At the time, walking myself into a wildfire would have been no more than a spark in my burning life. I was already standing at death's edge, barely surviving the week prior. I ignored my raw throat and strained lungs from the ash-laden air. Those are becoming mundane grievances with each summer I lived in Colorado. Okay, one, this is better written. So like this has been edited. Edits have been implemented, and I think that this shows that Milo has writing chops. I do think that like the naturalist, the knowledge that Milo has as a naturalist is actually like pretty interesting. I would almost be more interested in writing about that topic myself, and less about, the world of Guardian. I also like Milo has said several times that the world of Guardian is the only thing he wants to write, and he will never write anything else ever at all. Wish he would, because this stuff would be interesting. And also, you drove into a wildfire, bro? What are you doing? Like, I can't tell if he's being poetic and being like, this is how sad I am, and this is how like much I felt like I was burning and everything was turned to ash already because people didn't like my book. If you're being hyperbolic, it's a lot. And if you're being literal, like you drove into a wildfire and you didn't care if you were going to die because people didn't like your work and your fantasy world wasn't accessible to them, That's such an extreme reaction. Like, I've said this before on TikTok, I've said it before on this channel, but if you're not, if you don't think, if you can't, if you cannot handle the idea of people not liking your work, you're not ready, and you may never be ready to publicly share your work. People are just not gonna like your work no matter how good it is. I've done a bunch of different art forms: music, poetry, comedy, and even in like literature, whatever. You can put out your best stuff and someone's not gonna like it, and they're allowed to voice those opinions. You know, they're allowed to, they might tell you to your face, they might say it on a review platform, whatever, but that's just part of sharing your work. It's this kind of language where there is this like implication that like my well-being is on the line and you have to like my work, and since you didn't, you've set my life on fire. You know, all of my relationships, everything outside of writing is gone because you didn't like my writing. And that's like not true. I'm sorry, but like I love doing the stuff that I do. But like when my videos do 10 out of 10, when I bomb on stage, when I get bad feedback on pieces that I'm working on, I still have my friends, I still have my family, I'm still married. You're gonna be okay. You know, like you can survive putting out bad art. And if you don't think you can, you should not put out your art. My name is Milo Winter. I'm the creator of the world of Gardian, and this is what it's like to become hated for the thing I love the most. On July 28th, my peaceful morning TikTok FYP scroll was abruptly interrupted as I scrolled upon a video from another independent author. He was talking about how he just finished the worst indie book he'd read in a long time, as any reasonably paranoid author would. There's no such thing as reasonably paranoid, just real quick. Though the author said he wasn't saying names, he proceeded to talk about the pre-order numbers I had accomplished. I felt my heart drop with each sentence he spoke. He lectured on the importance of hiring editors and quality control in independent published. Horror rushed over me. He presented false information that my book wasn't edited as a concrete fact. But he didn't name names. And the first edition of Age of Scorpius does not read like it was editing. And like he kind of can't present that as a hard fact. You know what I mean? But he can be like, I read this thing, it was real bad, and other indie authors need to watch out for this. Because like a win for indie authors, one indie author's win is a win for independent publishing as a whole. You know what I'm saying? And in the same way, if somebody picks up the Age of Scorpius as their like first independently published book, that delegitimizes independent publishing for everybody. And so this TikToker is trying to look out for independent publishing as a whole, and is warning other indie authors to hire editors, to do quality control. Knowing that Milo had an editor, but seems to have failed to implement the notes from the editor, both developmental and copy editors, I guess. I get how this like misconception is happening where Milo seems to be like, what are you talking about? I totally edited it. But it's almost like if you this is maybe not not a war I need to start, but it's like when people are like, oh, no, I boiled water for tea. I put a mug of water in the microwave for a couple minutes. And people are like, that's not boiling water, dog. You need a kettle or a pot or some shit. Maybe that's not a one-to-one analogy, but I'm tired. It's been a long day, and that's the best I could come up with. Within hours of his video going viral, I faced an inferno of my nightmares racing at me. That sounds like spoken word, bro. Did you hear me slip into that like reading cadence? I had done everything I could to put out a strong book. I started my publishing process in February by hiring 2 editors with my scholarship money. Are you allowed to do that? I don't know if I've ever really learned the answer. Can you use scholarship money for things that aren't school? Also, no, you didn't do everything that you could to put out a strong book. Because like you started the publishing process in February and it was out by the end of June. That's like not a lot of time to implement edits effectively, even if you do it the more common way of implementing edits. You know, never mind this like I just rewrote the thing again. Then slowly increased my team of artists as the pre-orders began to take off. So like I have a small like publishing house of one for my chapbooks and my mentees' chapbooks. And before we would put out pre-orders, we make sure everything's done. And it's more about just knowing how many copies to order before we start sending them out. So we don't, only buy 50, but we have 60 orders. Or we buy 100, but we only got 25 or something like, I don't know. My developmental edits were returned to me in March before the pre-order chaos. My copy edits were returned to me in April in the heat of the pre-order chaos. That's not enough time. Like you've shot yourself in the foot with this extremely tight schedule. During this time, I was constantly in shock, exhausted, and overwhelmed from a rapid business startup. In the haze of implementing my copy editor's suggestions, I failed to notice that the edits themselves were insubstantial. This makes me mad, because like at first when I started reading this piece, I truly believed that Milo is kind of like, yeah, I get it now and I see what you mean, but it just seems like we're not like willing to let go of these two narratives, that like this TikToker and these editors are the ones to blame. Even if the edits were insubstantial, there were like spelling errors, repeated sentences, all that stuff. Like any decent copy editor would catch those. My mom's an editor. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I know what I'm talking about. But you didn't give yourself enough time. If you got these in April and you gave yourself like a month and a half, that's not enough time. Like, if I got edits in April, I'd put out a book in October, maybe at the earliest. That's just me, but maybe that's too soon. I don't know. Okay, skipping ahead. The ones that hurt me the most were the accusations that I'd intentionally published a bad book. Scammer. That word. It was the worst burn by far. I had reinvested all my funds from pre-orders back into bettering the book. I'd never properly paid myself. I didn't feel the need to. If Gardian was the thing that mattered to me most in my life, I was plenty happy bringing other people joy with my world. I started a company. I tried to give artists a secure job. I adjusted into a space to pack and ship 5,000 books. All I wanted to do was tell my stories. Each refund process turned a part of me to ash. A thing I'd worked so hard on, someone hated it so much they wanted to return my art back to me. It wasn't good enough for them. Okay, I've been a YouTuber for like 2 years. If someone just called me a scam, that you got off easy, okay? Like, people are going to call me worse things in the comment section of this video. Like, if you're going to be on the internet, people are going to say some really nasty things. And like, again, I don't think that this dude's a scammer. I do think that this is a young person who got way in over his head and doesn't really listen to outside feedback or advice and maybe didn't even really like look into how other indie authors like run their business or whatever. These are all things that you should learn before you leap. And then this part about I don't care about me as long as people like Gardian and want to be in Gardian. Again, there's this like underlying messaging of like, this matters so much to me and you have to love it because it matters to me. And I said it in a previous video, but like, no one else has to care about your art, and no one else is going to care as much about your art as you are. It's your art. It's from you. Of course, you're going to care about it, but not everybody else has to. People not liking your work or feeling like your product didn't live up to the hype you created, or that you falsely advertised a quality story and didn't give one. The fact that that's like turning you to ash, I think, kind of indicates that Milo wasn't ready to publish. In this need for it to be successful, I'm concerned about, like, if your well-being and your sanity is on the line because of how this work is being received, then I'm concerned. And I think that instead of putting this on the readers, you should get a therapist at the very least. Next was the conspiracies. Maybe I was a Nepo baby or an industry plant. What if I paid my followers? Did I constantly monetize my videos? Surely I used AI. People started taking the word of others for fact. Yeah, that's how the internet goes. I'd been as genuine and honest as I could in my content. People were assuming the truth behind words I'd never even said. I was being attacked, harassed by repeat individuals, told some of the cruelest things I've ever heard in my life. And even when I tried to speak about how much it was hurting me, I was told I was being too dramatic. In this piece, like, Winter includes I get like a graphic with an accumulation of some of these like horrible things that have been said, and like there's like 2 in here that are ableist and pretty nasty, but most of these are more like sarcastic and more like you done fucked up kid kind of vibes, and it's not all that cruel. I don't like the phrase too sensitive, but I think like if you're going to be on the internet, if you're going to put out your art, if you're going to be a public figure, you gotta have pretty thick skin, because people on the internet are cruel. This is not it, but people on the internet are cruel. And if this is the worst stuff anyone has said to you, people have been very nice to you your whole life, because I'm gonna tell you right now, people are gonna say meaner things to me in this video than the stuff in this graphic. You know what I'm saying? I do think that this part, like, be emotional and I'm an attention seeker, be casual, and I'm too informal, be informal, I'm too corporate, be genuine, I'm too immature, be confident, I'm narcissistic, be authentic, I'm pity marketing. There was a little bit of pity marketing in my opinion. Be hurt and I'm too sensitive, be proud of myself, I'm too cocky, redo the book, I'm money obsessed. I think this is something that I've noticed, not even in this situation, but just like with book talk and booktube in general, people seem to like when you get a critique from someone you don't know, it's like it's the same person over again. And I don't know if that's like the human brain doing a thing, but like no matter what you do, you're gonna piss someone off. So you do one thing, you handle a controversy, you try to make something right one way, someone else is gonna take issue with it for sure. But that doesn't mean that like, but you can't please everybody. Like you do one thing, someone's going to critique it. And if you do the opposite, someone's going to critique it in the opposite way. That's just going to happen. You got to kind of take a moment, step back, think about what you think would be the best course of action to correct the course of action that you've taken. Figure out if that aligns with your values, aligns with how you want to show up in the world, and do that. And I'm not going to tell you to not care about what other people say, because that's easier said than done, but you got to stick to what you believe is right, because the only thing you can ever do is your best. And even if people demand more from you than your best, that you can't do that because you already did your best. Oh, this is so long. Nightmare only worsened. I was cyber stalked by complete strangers who began obsessing over my personal life. Some tracked down my full legal name and encouraged users to comment it on the videos they could find about me. Others had to expose the GoFundMe I used to crowdfund my service dog, Smidge. This part, I'm definitely on this dude's side. Like, imagine having so little going on that you're like, become some weird internet vigilante where you're like trying to, I don't know what the motive for this is other than like you're bored and you're weird. Don't dox people. Don't, you like, this is a weird drama because in my opinion there are very few victims and the victims are out like $40. Like, I understand that the people who lost $40 on this book or whatever, they're going to be mad. They should get their money back. But cyber stalking somebody over it, that's crazy. Don't do that. And like the service dog and all that stuff, like that's none of our business. You know, if someone on the internet doesn't want to share that stuff, I tried to reassure myself by reading my own book. Surely it couldn't be that bad. It was that bad. I was overwhelmed with disgust and disappointment at my own writing. I'm scared that was the first time in a long time that Milo has reread his own writing. And that's concerning to me, because you should do that more as you go. Like, some people say don't edit as you go. I kind of do it by default. Like, that's just me. Whoops. It wasn't even close to what I knew I was capable of. Why did I release a debut so weak compared to other writing I am so much prouder of? What in the world happened? What was I thinking? Was I thinking? No, I couldn't have thought clearly when I was living in so much shock and overstimulation during the editing phases. My writing was confusing, my voice was fragmented, my characters weren't shining through. I was furious at myself, saw my own humiliation and enragement, and sickened by my own audacity. So again, now we're kind of like flip-flopping where it's like sometimes it feels like he's getting it, and other times he's like going back and be like, nah, it's these motherfuckers' fault or whatever. It's at this point in the piece where it's almost like Milo's acknowledging the flaws in the work, but it's still kind of like not fully acknowledging that it's like his fault. What I mean is like, I think just a good piece of independent publishing advice at this point would be like, hey, like get the text finished, completely finished before you move on to the artwork, the layout, the cover, all that stuff. And then when all that's done, then start pre-orders or something like that. It seems like even if you don't want to like write, and even if you don't want to self-edit as you write, which I don't think you should, because that can be really discouraging and be frustrating and slow. Take a little bit of time and come back and read it for yourself. I said it before, your work is worth the wait. You don't need to rush through these sorts of things, you know what I mean? I don't know if I'd call it audacity. I would call it like being overeager personally. Just like really, really wanting this book to come out and really want to get this franchise going. Like, this is like if Icarus had a jetpack, you know what I mean? Like, just like right up into that sun, you know? My sales came to a screaming stop. My revenue projections thrown out the window. I had a team of 20 artists I was either contracting or employing. All of them were furloughed. I failed them with my entrepreneurial attitude. I took financial risks and put all 6 figures back into my business, the same one that suddenly stopped making money. Why the hell didn't I put some back into my savings? I couldn't even stay afloat myself. How had I cared more about Gardian than protecting my own livelihood? Then it hit me. If I didn't turn around fast, I was back to square one. But I failed at that too. And here we are back at square one. The fire has been extinguished. There is no more underbrush to fuel it. Yet so many of you who are reading this will try and take these same words and use them against me. I've been back at square one a lot in my creative career. Couldn't even call my creativity a career, but like in my pursuit of a creative career, I've ended up at square one a lot. Some of that's my own fault. Some of that's my own impatience and overeagerness. And I've definitely bitten off more than I could chew. Not 6 figures worth of it, but like, you know, I've made business mistakes like this too as a young person. Not to this extent. The thing about being back at square one is that it feels like failure. But failure is feedback, and I know Milo really struggles with feedback, but if he can take the time away from the internet to heal, get some help, get some security in his identity, and find life outside of the world of Gardian, maybe he can be a stronger writer for it, and maybe he can even create like some kind of franchise where maybe there's novels and there's comic books. Maybe there's some kind of web novel thing with like interactive video animations or something cool. Because it seems like that's something that he really wants to do at some point. But I just think that like before he can really do this and really make it what he wants it to be, he needs to learn how to take care of himself. And he needs to find people in his life who care about him enough and respect him enough to be like, hey man, maybe you shouldn't do that. You know what I mean? Like, it's taken me years and years and years. But like my wife and my editor, Sonny, and the tech director for our production company, Aiden, when I'm out of my fucking mind, they will be like, you need to stop. Go eat a sandwich or take a nap or something, but please do not do the thing you're about to do. You and I are more similar than you realize. There is a fundamental value we all share as writers and artists. We are people who want to fight for creative representation in an era where it is so easy for us to catch fire with a spark. With these high disturbance fires, there is a greater threat, a looming storm striking bolts in each of our forests and igniting our worst fears. The heated climate, the burning political scene across the world, especially in America, dries us artists out and starves us for sustenance. So we begin to compete with our neighbors for resources, the heat it unleashes, the invasive species, the massive swarms of industries and monopolies who will prey on our work. Our communities of artists are constantly plagued. The intrusive fears that the beetle horde forces into our heartwood. Get on your feet, clear the underbrush, and let yourself burn to rebirth. If you must, then take that fury upon the monopolies, exhaling their waste into our heated climate. Uplift each fellow life form in your community. Stand up, spark the flame with the oil leaking from the system's cogs. Our forests all struggle to regrow after high disturbance fires. I kind of like the end of this in the sense of like, I like the spirit of it. Throughout some of this, I do think that like this is what's going on in my life. This is my perspective on what happened, and also here's all this naturalist information. It kind of like it's a little jarring to read. I think that this is, again, well written. I don't like it that much because it's like you're put like there's so many different things going on. It's like really strong flavored ingredients that don't necessarily complement each other super well. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes, like when I make spaghetti sauce, I put just a hint of cinnamon in there and a little bit of sugar. But like this is a lot of sugar, a lot of cinnamon in a spaghetti sauce, and it's just it's not really doing it for me that way. And I didn't screenshot it or whatever, but there's a bit where Milo talks about like being reborn and like this experience has killed him and now he's a new guy or whatever. And that's not, it's the same thing with the revision process where it's like, instead of going in and making changes and reflecting and editing, we're just going to start over again. And I worry that is like, and that's not how life works. Like, learn from your past, take your failure as feedback and become a better writer, better business owner, a better person. You know what I'm saying? Like, I love a fresh start. I used to do this to myself all the time where I would even like donate my whole wardrobe and be like, I wear this shit now, only to circle back to I'm a t-shirt, jeans, and hoodie guy every time. The fact I'm not wearing jeans right now is actually kind of crazy. They're cargo pants. Don't stop being weird. Don't. Gross. Ew. Cut it out. Hey, stop it. We love a fresh start. We love a clean canvas or whatever, but we can't keep painting over the canvas and be like, this is a whole new thing, because the layers of paint are still there. Maybe that's not a good analogy. I don't know. I'm tired. My throat hurts. I really do wish the best for this dude. I hope that he finds healing, and I hope that he gets the support that he needs, not just like artists in his community and stuff that are like, you can do it, but also like professional mental health support. You know, like there are times in this whole saga where he's implied that like his well-being is on the line because people didn't like the World Guardian, and that's concerning to me. Yeah, I think some of my main takeaways are like, you can't just restart over and have everyone else forget things that you do in the public or things that you created. As much as you may want a fresh start, I think it is good to be like, I'm starting a new chapter or a new thing without disregarding everything that came before. You know, like I think I said it in my last video talking about influence, but like every art form I've practiced informs the thing I did after that, to the point where some people have pointed out like there are poetic and lyrical sensibilities in my jokes. I don't know if I always am cognizant of that, but I think that's just from all the stuff that I've done. In the artist statement, kind of at the end of this piece, Milo confirms that he's in Norway right now with Solly, one of the artists from his team. And I know people are looking for this dude to be the villain or whatever, and be like, oh, I ran away to Norway with the money. I wonder if he just feels safer there because maybe he realized he was trans while all this was going on, and feels that the States is not a safe place for him now, which fair. It isn't. And maybe he just needs a different environment to like sort some stuff out. I do think that it was a little too soon to come back to the internet and try to, I guess, spin the narrative one last time, or maybe another time. Maybe you'll try again. I do think that it would be good for him to stay away from the internet for a while and not try to get the audience to bear the weight of his mental health, but to really take ownership of his mental health. Because I think for me, the tortured artist trope is overdone. And I don't think any work of art is worth suffering for, worth sacrificing for. Your well-being is not a price you should pay for the success of your art, especially since I think that a starving artist benefits capitalism more than it benefits the artist. And I think it's like another noble lie that we've been told. You know, if you're a deeply creative person who has a deep love for your work and is also struggling, I would say, like, please take care of yourself before you try to publish. Obviously, like, I'm just some fucking dude with a microphone. You can do what you want, but I do recommend taking care of yourself. Whenever I'm really struggling, I don't do this or anything else. I just try to watch romance anime to feel something and sleep more. I need better coping habits as well. Hope maybe this is the end of the story. Maybe Milo will just fade into the background and then come back with like a different book under a different name, or maybe the Age of Scorpius will come back and it's gonna fucking bang, and it's gonna be, we're all gonna be like, whoa, who would have seen that coming, you know? Maybe old DZ's gonna voice act in one of the animatics. The fuck was that word I was trying to say? Animatics. I'm so tired. I think one of the reasons the story kind of makes me sad, though, is that I get a lot of this, you know, like I'm neurotypical, but I also really feel some of these feelings. I think any deeply creative person will. There's definitely been times where I really want the thing to be successful to the point where I almost don't care about actually doing the thing. I just want to be a famous musician, a famous poet, a famous comedian, whatever the thing is. But it's like, I've definitely got caught up with that. I've definitely gotten ahead of myself, and I'm kind of thankful I was never told I was gifted or a prodigy, or I'm really thankful I didn't have adults believing in me until, well, my parents still don't. My wife does, though. She's cool. I think some of the main takeaways from the World's Guardian saga is, as much as an artist may want success, take your time. Your work is worth the wait. Don't rush yourself. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. We want sustainable, incremental growth for all of the creatives in the Don't Fret community. That way you don't lose your fucking mind. Open yourself up to feedback. Get trusted sources, editors, beta readers, writing buddies, or whatever. Just people you trust are rooting for you and want to see you win, but also respect and care enough about you to, like, not, you know, be a complacent yes man and let you put out an unpublished manuscript, unedited manuscript. And when you screw up, because we all do, we're all human, we're not perfect, just do your best to own up to it and do better next time. Because no matter what you do your best, even though your best is going to change from one moment to the next. And thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you to the patrons for your support. Patreon.com/DFretter if you want the newsletter for free, or if you pay, like, I think it's like $3 a month or something like that, you get access to the Discord server and a monthly business bonus video. It could be a business video, though. Maybe I'll talk about business one day. Kodashfi.com if you want to just buy me a coffee and help me get some more gear so I can keep making videos. And if you don't want to do any of that, no worries, but please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the page, and hit that noti bell. My name is DFretter. Don't fret. I'll see you next time. I gotta go because my wife is having a friend over and they're gonna bake Christmas cookies.